I know.
Bueno, amigos, aquí estoy con Steve Guttenberg otra vez. Gracias, Steve. Steve, how's your Spanish? Did you get any better since the last time?
I was going to say sí, but no, actually.
No, well, thanks for your time, and I guess we all have a little more time these days.
That's true.
As most of us know, you are the Steve McQueen of the audio world. You're the man who takes no shit from no one. You don't take orders from anybody.
No, I'm my own man.
You state your opinions about audio just the way you want. You're not necessarily an audiophile. You don't want to
no filters.
You don't want to be defined. You don't have to have the super audiophile records only. You listen to everything.
I listen to, well, I wouldn't say everything, but yeah, lots.
Okay. And you have over 100,000 subscribers.
114,000.
114.
Yeah.
You got to keep track of that.
I do, daily.
Well, it's called the daily.
Every click is precious. That's what I say.
It's called the Audiophiliac Daily.
It's the Daily Show.
And are you recording daily these days in the pandemic?
Well, 5 days a week.
Okay.
Which is one more day a week than the Daily Show on Comedy Central, which is 4 days a week. So I'm more daily than the Daily Show.
See that? And on a lower budget, slightly lower budget.
Slightly lower, but I got a smaller, tighter crew. We communicate really well.
The overhead.
They're union, by the way. They're 100% union. Look for the union label, I say.
Well, I'm a union member, and I am laid off, so I'm not making any money.
All right.
Speaking of, what do you think? What's going on with the industry? What's the state of the industry these days?
You mean the record industry or the music? Just
the hi-fi industry.
Well, you know, actually, I did a video the other day about 4 companies that I cited: VPI, Emotiva, Magnapan, and PS Audio. Did I say PS Audio? PS Audio.
Yes, it was PS Audio.
Right. So they're all up and running. They haven't laid any workers off, which is amazing. And Magnapan is actually hiring. So while you're out of a job with the Met Orchestra, go to White Bear Lake. They'd hire you to make Magnapan speakers.
Maybe a little bit.
Mention my name. And
yeah, can I put you as a reference?
Yeah.
It'll be a little bit of it'll be a tough commute.
Well, you know, it's cheaper to live there, so maybe you should consider White Bear Lake, Minnesota.
Sounds good to me.
It sounds attractive, right? White Bear Lake. Sounds beautiful.
I don't know. It kind of harkens memories of the movie The Shining to me.
That's true.
You know,
well, I was there. I don't remember the lake, though. I don't think I got to see the lake. Assuming there is a lake. Maybe the lake dried up. This is a comedy show, folks.
Yes, it's a comedy show.
Comedy of errors.
I'm honored to have the cool guy like you here on my tiny little wee channel. So tell me something, Steve. Do you have some really cool upcoming reviews that you might want to share?
Really cool upcoming videos. Well, today's video, well, you're going to run this later, but on, today is the 10th or 11th?
Today is the 11th.
The 11th. On April 11th and April 12th, I have my viewers' systems. So it's a bunch of JPEGs of their systems, horn systems, electrostatics, desktop, headphones. Each episode has about 18 or 20 different systems really nice. In it. It's so quiet, you know. My apartment, I took out my sound pressure level meter, and the average level was 29 dB. That is really, really quiet. And I live on a main street in Brooklyn. So it started me thinking, and I did some searches. And the New York Times has an article that the Earth itself, the entire Earth, is quieter because there's so much less movement of people. There's less traffic. there's fewer trains, there's fewer trucks rumbling along. And one of the things that they became aware of is that the scientists who do, research into seismic activity, meaning like from volcanoes and stuff, they can hear that more clearly because there isn't as much background noise of rumbling sounds. So, and it's not just traffic, it's factories. If you think about it, factories all over Earth, many factories aren't running. So the energy that those factories put into the ground is much less than it normally is. So anyway, I was thinking about that because I've noticed that my hi-fi, I'm listening more than I even normally do, how much better it sounds. So it's the background noise is way less, and that's not just it. A lot of the people in my building, I don't know how many, aren't here. So the electricity coming out of my wall is cleaner. So it's a good time to listen to your stereo.
Yeah, I think I noticed my horrible phono noise from my phono stage. Ground noises are down a little bit.
Yeah, but you told me you solved your problem with the noise.
Yeah, I did. I have several issues, but the last one was that my Technics SL1200, the ground cable had an intermittent issue. So I ended up replacing the whole RCA cable, took it apart, and all that stuff. I did a little time lapse on one of my episodes where I show it. So that has helped a lot. And also the last version of the PS Audio Stellar phono preamp that I got from them, the third unit, was improved. They did something, and it's much better. So everything has.
Oh, okay.
I'm having fun.
Okay, so you're not a neurotic audiophile anymore?
No, I'm still neurotic.
Okay, that should be your name. I am the audiophiliac, but you could be the neurotic audiophile.
Well,
how would that sound in Spanish?
It's implied in the title of my channel, which is of Audiophiles and Crazies.
Okay, well, crazy counts.
It comes from the Spanish saying of poets. Of poets and crazies, we all have a little bit.
Oh, okay, I get it.
So I replaced poet with audiophile.
Okay, that makes sense. That's good.
So
are you the only Spanish language audiophile channel?
No, there are many good ones, and there's some Spanish-speaking Steves out there. You have a doppelganger. You have your Spanish doppelganger.
I do.
Yeah, you have Francisco del Pozo in Spain, and you have also Fernando Mesa in Mexico, and some Argentinian channels also. There's really great people out there.
Oh yeah, okay.
Hello to all of them.
Yeah, well, you should be a guest on their channels to promote your channel. Seriously, have you contacted them?
I've interviewed Francisco, and I interview Fernando Mesa, and I'm hoping to interview other ones.
All right,
yeah, but I'm still small potatoes here. It's a small operation. Anyway, let's go back to speakers, because I know you're a big fan of speakers, and you're a big fan of horn speakers these days.
Yes.
Are you still enamored with the clips and all that stuff?
Absolutely. So I have Cornwalls are my reference speaker now.
Did you actually keep them? Did you buy them?
No, I don't buy, but they're here. They're on a long-term loan, and no, I think they're amazing. Actually, their mid-range is just incredible for me. I'm using them with a bunch of different first watt amplifiers. I switch between them. Lately, it's the first watt SIT3, and it's musical and not in the cliche sense. It's just sounds right. Okay.
So so this is a good time for subscription-based music, huh?
Yeah, but because there was a thing. Well, I put up a thing early on a couple of weeks ago that now, since you can't see live music in most places, this is a time to hunker down and buy, downloads or streaming, but preferably downloads or CDs or LPs to support living artists. I mean, it's one of the weird things I think about audiophiles is they're so proud of themselves when they buy used records, and they say, oh, I found this amazing, Miles Davis record from 1957. Well, that doesn't really do Miles Davis or Miles Davis estate even any good, If you should be, at least some of your music buying budget should be towards living artists. or in your case, living orchestras, right? That not really supporting anybody by buying used music. So,
but it's such a paradox because if you buy the old Miles Davis recordings,
yeah,
those are the ones that use the analog masters, and maybe the tape wasn't worn out so much by then, you know, back then.
right.
If you got a remaster issue or something that they had already used the master too many times, or
Yeah, well, you're speaking like an audiophile. I'm speaking like a music lover. I'm going to support the musicians. You're the freaking musician in this conversation. You should be saying, screw audiophile. I want to support musicians.
Yes, thank you. So if you're going to download high resolution files, which is your preference? Would you have a preference over, you know, DSD, PCM, high res? Have you noticed anything that catches your attention? Or
I don't understand DSD. I think it's a really stupid format. So that would be like the least likely scenario that I would ever use. No, I mean, you know, if you're a high res believer, which I am generally not, you should download high res in whatever format makes you happy. But I would question the provenance of any high res recording. You know, where did it come from? Where did the master come from? The Beatles masters are all at Abbey Road in London. That's it. They all know exactly where they are. But the Rolling Stones recorded in Chicago and London and LA, and they didn't really take care of their masters, so they're all over the place. So this woman that worked for actually the company is called Abco, 2 years, and she pulled them all to New York, from Japan, from South America. They all came to New York. Then they listened to them, and they compared them to original pressings of the LPs to determine which of these many masters was the best sounding master. Amazing amount of work. Now, most people that make high-res transfers don't do that. They go, okay, here's this one, use this one, and we're done.
It's a digital copy sometimes now. Digital copy.
Right, it might be a 44 1/16 copy. So in other words, older recordings that are remastered and stuff, maybe yes, maybe no. I wouldn't be counting on it. So,
isn't that the prerogative of Bob Stewart and MQA? He says that they go back to the original masters and they redo this and that.
Again, okay, I'll go with what you just said. They go back. Where would they come from? Whose master? Because I think you know, people who aren't in the audio biz or in the recording biz think that there is a master that just sits there like, this is the master. There isn't.
They make
usually one master. There's lots of masters, and sometimes they're copies of copies, and sometimes this one was EQ'd, and sometimes this one was. So we don't know where the master is usually, unless the band or the record company, like the example of the Beatles, was obsessive about protecting that master. That's rare. So the idea that there's ever a master is suspicious, I would say.
Interesting.
For MQA or anybody else. In other words, I think it's marketing.
Isn't that what it's all about? I mean,
pretty much.
Each format makes you buy the same album again and again and again.
It's the American way. Actually,
yeah. So I want to just ask you, can you share with us maybe some records that you,
of course,
that you planning to play today, or that you were playing today, or?
Well, I don't know about that. I wouldn't say that. But I thought of some records just before we did this call. So here are a few. This one here, Rolling Stones Now. Now, okay. I got this record in 1964 when it was a new record. And I played it hundreds of times on many, many different systems. It's so meaningful to me. It's such an important record that a high-res version or any other version doesn't mean a thing to me. This is the one I want to play. And I think touching a record or a CD or whatever that you bought and you remember where you got it and where you were and all that stuff, I think that is hugely important.
And the smell of it.
And the smell, absolutely. I think that generations of people who've grown up with files and stuff where they never touched it, I think as the decades go on, and they look back on the music of their youth, I don't know. I don't know how they'll feel about it. I know that they won't have the same feelings I do because I have this thing. I've had this record for 56 years. So that's that. Well, to me, you know, it's going to be different, obviously different for different people, but that's a big one. And this record, this is sort of a classic 1980s audiophile. And this record, which used to drive people crazy, we used to use it to sell hi-fi all the time.
Oh, really?
And this record is kind of schmaltzy, you know, like gooey Hollywood thing.
Yeah.
But it's a direct-to-disc recording, meaning there was no tape used to make this record.
And it's Sheffield Lab, yeah.
And it's Sheffield Lab. And I bought this record for $3 when Stereo Exchange was closing its store on Broadway. Mm-hmm. They were blowing out all their records. And I saw this and I said, you know what? I never owned this record because it's been like 25 years since I used to use it since I used it to sell audio. And as a thing, as an audiophile recording, a really beautifully made audiophile recording. I mean, Amanda McBroom is kind of a very white bread kind of singer, kind of bland singer. But the production is really nice. And it's a really good sounding record. So $3, absolutely worth every penny. So then this record, Nielsen sings Newman. So Harry Nielsen was,
huh? I don't know this one either.
Okay, so Harry Nielsen was an unusual musician in that he was sort of a singer-songwriter, but very well crafted, and his voice had amazing range, great singer. And he was struggling. And then somebody who worked for the Beatles, this is in the early 70s, somebody who worked for the Beatles was in California to do something. And they heard Harry Nielsen's song, not this record, an earlier record, on the radio. And he bought Nielsen records for the 4 Beatles. He gave them to the 4 Beatles. And the Beatles were just amazed by Harry Nielsen. They were blown away. So Paul McCartney, being Paul McCartney, got his telephone number, Harry Nielsen's telephone number. So he calls him up and he said, hey, this is Paul McCartney. I heard your record. I loved your record. And Harry Nielsen thought it was a joke. So he hung up on Paul McCartney. And Paul was like, whatever, you know. And then the next day, John Lennon got the number and called him up and said, hey, this is John Lennon. I got your record. I love your record. And for some reason, he didn't hang up on him. He believed that it was really John. And they became lifelong friends till John was killed. And he became, and this was when the Beatles started Apple Records. And, you know, a couple of weeks later, John and Paul come to New York and have a press conference. The media is asking Paul and John, so who's your favorite artist? And they're saying, Harry Nielsen. And they're going, Harry who? We never heard of the guy. And then suddenly everybody wanted to know who Harry Nielsen was. So he became super famous.
Wow. I mean, when you have the Godfathers, you know?
Yeah. And then that set off his career and all's well that ends.
Well, anyway, I hope that you stay healthy and everyone is doing well. And I look forward to watching your channel, The Audiophiliac Daily.
The Audiophiliac Daily Show.
The Audiophiliac Daily Show.
Yes.
We'll be watching
it rolls right off the tongue.
The Audiophiliac Daily Show.
Or some people are now just calling it the Daily Show because my Daily Show is, at least in certain circles, is more important to people than the other dailies. Yes. So mine is just now becoming the Daily Show.
Yeah. And yours has a much better background because the other guy at the Daily Show is just like a blank wall.
That's just plastic. That's fake. What you see behind me is 100% real.
Yes, absolutely.
No doubt about it. No art direction here.
Too bad I can't see those clips from here, but maybe next time.
No, yeah, they're in the dark. That's right.